Hi, welcome back. I'm Justin.
I'm Cesar.
And this is the Hope Shot. So today's story, we're going to be talking with Cesar, and he's going to share with you his story on how he found recovery and what it was like. Cesar I haven't known him that long, but since I've known him, he's just a really positive person, man. Always upbeat, always makes you feel good when you're around him. Awesome. So it's an honor to hear his story. So, Cesar?
Thank you very much. So my name is Cesar, and I got clean and sober April 24th of 2014. So I'll go back and give you a little bit of background. Born and raised Tampa, Florida. Good mother, good father, good upbringing. They provided everything that you could want, showed up to all the baseball games, and I tell all of that because my situation had nothing to do with why I went down the road that I went. I noticed at a pretty young age, I felt like didn't fit in, didn't belong, always anxious, always overthinking everything. And when I took my first drink, because alcohol was the first thing that I used, I noticed that all of that kind of quieted down, and I liked that. You know, it became my solution on how to life. So if I took a drink, I knew I could talk to a girl. If I took a drink, I knew that I wouldn't have anxiety about what I was wearing, if I was wearing the right thing or if I was saying the right thing in the right crowd. None of that mattered. I was just Cesar, and I felt comfortable in my skin. So I ran with that. You know, it's
liquid courage. A little bit of liquid courage, man. It goes a long way.
100% liquid courage. We're talking 10, 12 years old, though, that I started picking up a drink. And early on, I started obsessing about when I was going to do it again. At 12 years old, at least I didn't have access to alcohol 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. But I would certainly scheme on how I would get it. And all week long, that would be the plan. Now, my dad owned bars, so there was always liquor around. I could always get my hands on it. I just, at 12, 13, I didn't have the excuse to go disappear long enough to do it. So we would plan. I'd get my friends, and we would set up something down the road, or this one would say, I'm staying at his house, and this one would say, I'm staying at his house, and we'd meet up in some field, and we'd just get plastered. The problem with that is it became an obsession in my mind where I used to think about baseball, any sports, skateboarding, this and that. All I started thinking about was when I was going to get loaded again. So that's early, but it kind of set the blueprint for what my life was going to look like. Now, if you can imagine, by the time I was like 15, I was off the chain. You know, I mean, I didn't care about school. I didn't care about anything. And at this point, I had gotten my hands on some pot. I had gotten my hands on some coke here and there. And I was using and abusing anything I could find. And during the same time, my dad got arrested for political corruption. So my dad's getting ready to go on trial. And my parents were trying to do something nice. They were trying to send me to a military school to get me away from the publicity of this trial that my dad was going to be on, because it was a big deal. Like, all the big names in Tampa, it had news coverage.
Oh, so this was around here?
Yeah, this is in Tampa.
Oh, wow.
So all this stuff went down, and they're trying to do me a favor, and all I look at it as is they're trying to punish me by putting me into this military school. So I'm supposed to be going to take a tour of the school with my mom, and she's walking me around, and we meet this guy in a uniform, and I'm like, yeah, this is stupid. I'm not going to stay here. I don't know why you're doing this. She says, well, just take the tour. So I take the tour with the guy, and I'm bad-mouthing him the whole time. I'm being a little punk.
Yeah.
And we take the full tour, and I get back, and my mom's not there. There's a Foot Locker with all the uniforms in it, all the stuff. And
I've set you up.
Yeah. So I've just been talking crap to this guy the whole time. And he was like, well, welcome to military school, son. And I was like, oh, you got to be freaking kidding me. So within 2 weeks, I've learned the lay of the land. I'm already getting in trouble. And I learned pretty quick that if you get in trouble, you can never leave the campus. if you do the right thing, you can leave on the weekends and you can do stuff. But I also figured out the only people there with me on the weekends were the other kids that weren't doing the right thing. So it's just a bunch of heathens there every weekend. And I started figuring out ways to get off campus. They have to let you go by law to church. The only way to prove church is if you bring back the pamphlet. So I'd stop by church, pick up the pamphlet, get a ride into Tampa, get a bunch of bottles of booze, come back. And I started throwing parties in the dorm rooms. We started having card games and gambling. And then I started making money off of it, selling the booze. So I started loaning the money out to the kids that could leave on the weekend, the good kids. And as you can imagine, as time went on, you have to collect those debts and you start doing things that are frowned upon. And I'm looking at myself as this philanthropist that's helping people. Like, I'm handing out money to people that need it. I'm providing a service. That school called it loan sharking.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's loan sharking.
So they called it loan sharking, and they decided that I didn't need to be at that school anymore, and I didn't even make it through the first year. I got kicked out. My dad had been through his trial. Everything was settled down. He came to pick me up. And I've got like $800 in cash from my enterprises at the school.
From your philanthropy?
From my philanthropy. But the thing was, there was no real consequence. He's a businessman. He sees the wad of money and he's like, man, really, you pulled all that together in there? I'm like, yeah, of course I did that. So, long story short, I ended up going to public school. And I'd been in private schools my whole life. I finally get into public school and I get into a world of things that I could get my hands on that I was never able to before. My entire time at that high school, I would skip the majority of the day and I would either be smoking, drinking, snorting, whatever I could get my hands on, and I would come back for the last period because that guy would always call our homes or call and get us in trouble. But it was so bad that even the people that I partied with were trying to block my car in the morning so I wouldn't leave school. There was people, teachers that didn't even know I existed, that I was on the roll, but I'd never been to their class. And I was able to take tests. So I'd show up for the test and the people would be like, you're not in this class. I'm like, oh, no, I am. This is, I take history this period. And I come in, I take the test, and I pass the test, and I would always end up passing. And I basically made my way through high school like that, just blackout drunk. I spent my entire senior year on acid, the entire year, and
seems legit.
Yeah, but it was a disaster. So.
Yeah, I mean, just skating by through high school. I can relate with a lot of that.
Well, not just skating by. I got my first DUI when I was 17 years old in high school. I already had a DUI. I lost my license for a while. I leave there, skate by the skin of my teeth, and manage to get myself into a college. I go to college, and all these people are partying for the first time in their life. They're like, oh, it's freedom. There's no parents around. And it's what I'd been doing for years. The only thing that it benefited me was I didn't look weird anymore at the level of partying that I would do because everybody was doing it. Now, I know we don't have a ton of time on this show, so I don't want to dwell too much on that. So I'll fast forward. When I got out of college and everybody starts being responsible and getting jobs or getting married, I wanted nothing to do with that. I couldn't understand it. I didn't understand why the party was stopping. So I figured out a way to get my parents to pay for me to go to UNLV, which is in Las Vegas. And when I get to Las Vegas, I start finding levels of drugs that I had never dreamed of.
It's a whole other world.
Correct.
So this UNLV is a college university?
Yes.
Okay.
So UNLV, I told my parents that I was going to go try to get my master's degree. And I'm laughing because I never had any intention of getting a master's degree. I just wanted
It was a different kind.
Yeah, I wanted somebody to pay for me to go to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So it was an excuse.
Yeah.
And I get there, and it was the first time that I'd run into heroin. Heroin was popular off the strip, like the main strip in Las Vegas. You could get it anywhere. And my drinking went just off the charts at the same time, because all these little dive bars, as long as you're sticking a nickel in a slot machine or a video poker, you drink for free. So it's sink or swim every night, drink to oblivion, shooting up heroin, just a disaster. And I finally get out of there, and I come back to Tampa, and I find a guy within 2 weeks that can get me what I need in Tampa, because I'm a full-blown junkie by the time I come back. And I was making preparations for when I left Vegas to be able to maintain this, because, you know, I don't know if you're familiar, but you get very sick when you're strung out on a lot of heroin.
Familiar.
So I get back and I start getting in trouble. You know, I start getting DUIs on a regular basis. I had already had one. I start getting arrested for other shady things. I came into some money, and I asked my dad to help me with that money, ill-gotten money, and he helped put me into the bar business. But during this same time, right before I got the bar, I get pulled over, and I got a warrant on me because I never showed up to court for my DUI. And it's the first time that I get arrested and brought in and locked up, and I have to detox. You know, all these years, I've managed to keep my habit fed, and I've never had to stop. So you've got 5 years of daily opiate use, plus all the other stuff I was taking, and they locked me up in Orient Road, and they put me in this cell, and I literally thought I was dying. Like, thought my skeleton was trying to crawl out of my skin. And mind you, I'm a spoiled brat. I'm pressing the buzzer in the thing and telling the guards how horrible I feel, you know, that I'm dying. Well, they don't care.
No,
at all. Nope. They straight up told me, well, you shouldn't have done all that shit to yourself, kid. Deal with it.
Yeah.
So I keep hitting the buzzer, and eventually they open the thing up, and they take me to a holding cell in medical and leave me in the holding cell for like 72 hours.
The medical ones are even worse.
Yeah. So no blanket, no anything.
The lights on the whole time.
You know, they put me in there. I finally get in front of a judge, and they say I got options. Well, one of the options was to go to a rehab. So I go to the rehab. My dad's sitting on the money out there. We had just opened this bar. I'm in a 6-month rehab. Well, somewhere the paperwork was messed up, and they put me down as voluntary instead of court ordered. So I find out that I'm voluntary, and I tell them at like 4 months, I'm like, I think I've got all the recovery I need. I'm solved. But the problem is, I walked out of that place the same person that walked in. Nothing changed on the inside. I went to this bar, and I decided to go and be an entrepreneur. I'm going to be a bar owner where I can drink however I want to drink. And I was good at it. I'm good at talking to people. I can count money. I can run a business. It's not a problem that I had. The problem I have is I can't stop drinking and using drugs.
You're drinking all your product.
I was drinking all my product, but I ended up turning that one bar into 3. But during this time, I get 2 more DUIs. I'm on just like the amount of probation that I can never see the end of it. I'm on like 15 years probation because all these DUIs stacked up, and I never finished any of them. And now I can't drive, and I start going out and getting dudes to drive me around, and they're boosting stuff. And no matter how much money I made, my heroin habit was always more than what I made. There was a point where I was making hundreds of thousands after taxes, but I was shooting more than that, hundreds of thousands, you know, with other things put in there. And I mean, it got dark. It got so bad that the bartenders in my home bar said, please don't come in on our shift. You know, like, you look like The Walking Dead. You know, you look like a zombie. And during all this, my parents have tried literally everything they can think of. But if you can relate, if you're anything like me, telling me, you know, oh, do it for us. or you were such a smart kid, just don't do this. You know, any of these emotional appeals, I didn't hear any of that crap. All I heard was, you're gonna have to stop doing what you want to do, you know, and I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna let myself get sick. I wasn't scared of getting in a fight. I wasn't scared of dying or anything, but I definitely had a healthy fear of being dope sick. It drove me to do shit that I would never do in a right mind.
I mean, most addicts that actually do the opioid addiction, I mean, everybody's so fearful of that. Oh, I can't get sick. I don't want to get sick. I mean, it's just a huge fear, and that's what keeps a lot of people in that habit, because they don't want to go through that, because it's horrible.
It's awful. So, I want to get to more about recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole thing culminates in, boom, I'm getting locked up. I get drug charges. I get put on drug offender probation. One of those times, eventually I got pulled over and I had a bunch of stuff on me. Now I'm on drug offender probation with no plan on how to stay sober or to stay clean or whatever you want to call it. So I'm trying to play the system. So boom, rapid succession. I would get arrested, go to jail, detox, get placed in a program, get out, complete the program, but not change one thing inside again. I would just do what I was told. But no soul searching, no anything about what made me tick. And I'd come out and I'd pick up a drink and I'd end up with a needle in my arm and just over and over and over. And it got to the point where I had accepted fully that I was either going to die of an overdose on the streets, because I've been brought back 5 times that I can remember with Narcan. I've been in the worst hoods that you can think of in Tampa and OD'd in a bathroom in a gas station in the middle of the hood. Believe me, nobody gives a crap if you're dead in there.
Yeah.
Except for the guy that owns the store, because he doesn't want a dead body in his
Yeah, he just wants you out of there.
So he would call fire rescue or something. They'd come out. They'd hit me with Narcan. I'd wake up pissed off because they just put me into withdrawals, and I spent good money to get that way. And over again, I got locked up so many times in a row that when I would go back into the pod in county jail, it was just an ongoing joke that my bunk hadn't even been filled yet. They would let me out. I'd be back in 2 days. They would let me out, sometimes 24 hours. I would be back. I was screwed. So the last time that I was in court. I'm in front of the judge. I had just gotten arrested. My scalp is purple because I had dyed my hair in a blackout inside of a Walgreens bathroom and then walked out with purple hair and purple crap all over my face. And I'm eating potato chips that I didn't pay for. And big shocker, when they showed the video in court, you see me walking out into flashing lights. But I was so gone that I didn't even see them. I just got right in the car and tried to start the car. And so,
yeah,
all this stems from drug charges. So I'm in big trouble at this point. They put me in front of the judge, and I'm so hopeless at this point that I tell her, please don't send me to another rehab. Just send me to prison and let me do my time, because recovery doesn't work, is what I said. And she told me to shut up. And she says, Cesar, we know you know how to do time. We want to see you do recovery. And I'll never forget that, because I'd done so much time. I pointed out to go for at least 5 years right then for all the stuff that I had done. And she chose to give me this one more shot. Well, that's my sobriety date. I went to a place in Tarpon Springs, and I did something different. I asked somebody for help. There was guys bringing 12-step meetings in, and the first guy that came in had tattoos like me on his arms and started cussing and this and that, and I was like, hey, that's probably my guy right there.
That's my guy.
That's him. But something told me, just hold on, let's see what else we got to offer in here. And the next guy that came in had a tie on, glasses, and he looked like he had a good job. He clearly pulled up in a car and was leaving in a car, so he had a license. And these are things I couldn't relate to because he told a story that sounded a lot like mine. At least I could relate to like just the mental anguish that he talked about, the suffering, the constant compulsion to think of the next shot, the next drink. And when he told that, I was like, holy crap. Like, he's talking about what I feel. Except he has all this shit together and I don't. So I asked that guy. I said, basically, will you show me how to live? The most uncomfortable conversation that I've ever had. But the best decision I ever made was to ask somebody to show me how to do this. And the one addict to another thing, that's what worked for me. This guy took the time to sit down and talk about all these internal driving forces that I had, all these character defects and problems and shit that I tried to cover up. And it turns out that drugs and alcohol were my solution to life. And if you take them away, I'm kind of batshit crazy and I don't know what to do with myself. So I worked a program and I got out of that place. And finally, I came out on the other side of a program, a changed person. And my motives were different, and I got to work. I learned that if I wanted to keep this, that I had to give it to somebody else, that I had to work with somebody else and show them how I got sober. And I had to go out in the community and help anybody when I can, because I don't think about all my little problems and all my BS if I'm thinking about you. If I'm more worried about how you're going to get your shit together than I am about mine, it seems like God's in the background sewing all mine together without me asking him. So we were talking before we were on camera. I got out with no money, no job, the clothes on my back, 37 years old, about to be 38, with no real work history, except for, hey, I own my own business. Let me put that down on there. Hey, I'm a college graduate. Great. Nobody wanted to hear that. I had nothing to offer anybody as far as they could see. They said, hey, he owned his own business and he has a college degree, but he's 38 and he's literally never done crap. On paper, I was worthless. I'm a multiple convicted felon, and I'm like filling out applications for upper management jobs. That lasted about 2 weeks, and I realized that nobody was going to hire me for upper management. So I'm walking 10 miles a day. I'm walking to a meeting. I'm walking to probation, and I'm spending the rest of the day walking up and down 19 and 52, looking for a job, putting in applications anywhere. Sandwich maker, please hire me. Dishwasher, please hire me. Nobody would hire me. So like my last hope was a dishwasher at this place. And I'd never even heard of this. I did an in-person interview for a dishwasher job.
Really?
An in-person interview for a dishwasher job.
I've never heard of that. I actually was the guy that probably applied for a dishwasher job back in the day.
They told me to come in and, I don't know, talk to the nighttime manager. And I sat and had like a 30-minute conversation with this guy. And I'm like, I got the job. I mean, I'm pretty full of myself. So I'm like, hey, this guy sees what I have to offer. I did not get the dishwasher job. So I'm at 7 months and I haven't brought in a penny. The girl that I'm staying with has my daughter. I'm not producing anything for the household. And I'm like starting to lose hope. And if it wasn't for the circle that I had of recovery friends saying, don't worry, it'll happen. Well, it did happen. A guy offered me a job at an insulation company and says, if you can get your license, we'll hire you. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't think I can get my license. But it put me on the path to try, right?
Mm-hmm.
During this same time, I'm going on foot to detoxes. I'm going anywhere I can where I feel like I can be of service. helping set up 12-step meetings. I'm helping people move. I helped one guy move that I told you. He gave me a bike for helping him move. And I thought it was the biggest deal in the world, because if you ride your bike 10 miles a day, that's not that bad. On foot, 10 miles a day, that's a whole day.
Yeah.
You know, the whole day is gone. So I started being able to add things in, and I went and put in applications for hardship license and this and that. I ended up getting my license, and I got the interlock system that I had to blow to start the car. But shockingly, if you're not doing anything wrong, that thing's not a very big deal. Probation, I finished my probation early term, which I'd never even finished probation. But when you're doing the right thing, all of a sudden it's not a big deal anymore.
Just things get easier after a while.
It's amazing. So I take the job, but I had made a promise that if I ever got my license back, the first thing that I was going to do was go back to the rehab and pick up guys and take them out. And I did that for 4 years. I had the privilege of picking these guys up, talking to them about recovery, going and getting Mexican food. And I got to see some of these guys get their shit together, get clean, get their families back. And it just drove me to want to do more. I worked my way up in the business. When I started, I was the insulation removal expert, which for our viewers, that's the low man on the totem pole that was sucking out fiberglass insulation from rat-infested attics. But I was the most grateful guy you've ever seen, because I earned that money. Nobody gave it to me. I was able to provide for my family. I felt good because I'm helping others. I never had good self-esteem in my life. I always thought I was just a piece of shit because I did piece of shit things. Well, shocker, if you do esteemable things,
Yeah, I was just thinking.
you get good self-esteem.
That's how you get good self-esteem. Yep.
This woman had said that to me before I got clean and sober. She literally verbatim, she goes, "You want good self-esteem, you got to do esteemable acts." And I went, "Ooh, isn't that clever?" Well, she was right. You know,
Those little cliche little catchphrases that they use when we're first in recovery. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But they actually really work, you know. And then you start saying them yourself, and you're like, yeah, it does work.
She was 100% right. When you're not doing shady stuff day in and day out, you know, you don't feel like a piece of crap anymore. Mm-hmm. So all this thing is going on, and I know you got to keep track of time, but all this is going on, and I took a step back one day. I've been riding the bike, walking. Now I got the car. I hadn't thought about a drug or a drink. Like, I hadn't even thought about it for months. And I slowed down for a minute, and I was like, I mean, that's been my entire life. I had a needle in my arm for 17 years. All I thought about was the next drug. It's all I thought about. And I took this quiet moment, and I was like, wow. It almost brings a tear to my eye. 3 months had gone by, and I hadn't thought about using or drinking or anything. All because I turned everything outward and tried to help as many people the same way that I was helped. And you get busy, you know, all of a sudden, and I know you know, work life gets busy. I met she wasn't my wife at the time, but I met my future wife. I got my child back in my life. She has a child. Fast forward, we become a family. You know, she does great work in the community. It was like combining forces. And my life continues, to get better as long as I keep doing the very same things that I did early on. You know, people ask me, oh, well, you know, what do you do now at almost 7 years? I do the same crap that I did in year one, because that's what got me where I am.
Maybe a shift in perspective a little bit, because I remember my first early recovery, first year, I was kind of wild still. So you're still doing the same things, but it's changed. It evolves. Your recovery evolves over time, you know?
It does, but there's principles that stay guiding principles.
Of course.
Helping people is a core thing that will never change. And it used to be early on, like, you have to give it back if you want to keep it. You have to. I want to now. It's different. I want to see people feel the way I feel. That moment that I had when I realized I hadn't thought about a drink or a drug for months, when I actually just had that like revelation, like, holy crap, the thing that's crowded my mind 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the better part of my life is gone. That's a freaking miracle.
Yeah, I remember. I call it spiritual awakenings almost.
It is
exactly what it is.
What it is.
Those are what down like going through the process of recovery. You have those little bits. It's like, wow, like things that used to affect you so much. It was so much part of your life in your head. It's gone, and you're just like, I remember that day that happened for me too.
Today, it's not about me worrying about having a drink or taking a drug. You know, I work on being a better person on a daily basis. That's what I have to deal with. I have to worry about being available, being a good husband, being a good father. What can I do to be better? How can I serve people more? What platform can I use, like this platform, where I can reach people and offer somebody hope? Because there's not a lot of guys walking around the street that stuck a needle in their arm for 17 years and are sitting around sober to tell somebody the story. You know, I got clean right before the fentanyl thing hit. I'd have been the first person in line that went, oh, there's people dying from it. It must be good. I should go check it out for myself. By all rights, I shouldn't be sitting here talking to you. And that miracle is not lost on me. And I want to share that with people. And as long as I do that, my life keeps getting better. Do I have hard times? Do we all have hard times?
Of course.
Work, family, all these things that we juggle, faith, spirituality, you know, throw them all up in the air. It's a balancing act all the time. Sometimes I drop a ball, I got to pick it back up, but I don't pick up a drink or a drug. I don't even think about it. So
the solution is no longer in that bottom of a bottle or the end of a bag. It's,
nope.
You know, life still happens as we go through recovery. It doesn't change. Life is still life. We just chose to use the drinking or the drugging as a solution to our problems, which it never worked. It made them worse.
It piled more problems on, where it's kind of a do no harm thing now. It's as long as I'm not purposely hurting somebody, purposely lying, cheating, or stealing, then I allow myself to be human. We're going to make mistakes. No matter what, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to have a long day. We're going to say the wrong thing. We're going to be short-tempered. Something's not going to go perfect on a project. I'm not going to hit the number that I want to. I might react badly, where I can make amends for those things and make them right quickly. I can't make it right if I pick it. You know, if I go back to the original solution, that just sends me down a hole where I'll piss everybody off around me and nobody will want to be around me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's probably the biggest compliment that I get. I'm working with somebody and I'm reading and we're talking about what my life was, and you know, you guys are getting a very tame version of it. But I tell them that and they go, I couldn't even imagine you like that, man. Like, I couldn't imagine it. I'm like, well, try a little harder to imagine it, because that's where I came from, and that's why I'm so willing to try to help.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I mean, recovery's been everything to me. I've never had a healthy relationship, and you know, my wife and I are just like an amazing team together. I get to see my kids healthy, happy. They know if I say I'm going to be at their cheerleading or if I'm going to be somewhere, they have no reason to think I won't be there, because they didn't see the old person. They didn't see the person that was nothing but lies, no follow through. I would tell you whatever I had to tell you to make you believe me for that moment so I could get what I want. But I never had any intention of following up with anything. Now integrity is the most important thing. My word is all I have. And if I tell somebody I'm going to do something, I'm absolutely going to be there, and I'm going to back it up, and I'm going to do it.
Well, Cesar, that is an amazing story. Like, this is the first time I ever heard your story, which I love hearing stories for the first time. Because, like, for real, you would never think in a million years, like, if you met you for the first time, that you'd have a story like that. Because I didn't even know you had a story like that. And I've known you, you know, not that long, but I feel like long enough to where, you know, you would, I can't picture you like that. So, and that's why we're doing this Hope Shot thing. That's why we want to get the message out there, because it's not there's normal people out here that live normal lives that have been through the grip of addiction and that cycle, the endless cycle of over and over and over, till one day that shit clicks, and then you find recovery, and actually you follow through and do the work, and you actually get it. You know, so anybody can get recovery. It just you have to do the follow through, you have to do the work, and you have to want it. So thank you for watching. This has been another episode of the Hope Shot. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, give us a comment, let us know what you think, and until next time, thanks.